This newsreel was produced in 1960 and it looks back at the events 25 years before. The United States in 1935, in the middle of the Depression, and as it was beginning to show signs of maybe exiting that depression.
Not enough money from the legislature, say the teachers. It's heard every year, but 25 years ago today, the 5,000 teachers who paraded in protest along Chicago's Loop had a stronger case. They hadn't been paid for 11 months. The tab, $30 million. Sympathetic students and parents joined the marchers who were also complaining of cuts in school services. Education was more important than the depression, they chanted. Elsewhere in the nation, labor unrest was widespread. The Camden shipyards, the auto industry, 6 major strikes in Cleveland simultaneously. Under heavy pressure, FDR joined Vincent Astor on his yacht Nourmahal for a fisherman's holiday in the Bahamas. With him sailed his son, James. The president began his 10-day rest from the cares of state, having mediated a back-to-work agreement in the auto industry. On his return, he faced a heavy schedule, with acceleration of the NRA recovery plan and $1.5 billion relief program in the works. Just the sight of men punching time clocks, of rolling production lines, was good news in the troubled year of 1934. For 300,000 workers and for automobile-minded America, it was especially cheering. The threat of a strike was past, the new cars were coming off the line at the rate of thousands per day, and the workmen were eating again. More good news for motorists came with the development in France of a non-skid tread for tires. And best of all, the deep crosswise grooves could be cut into any auto tires. A great stride forward in safety, the new treads were guaranteed to grip the pavement wet or dry, as these road tests demonstrated. And as the test was being filmed, came a chilling reminder of the hazard. A sudden stop in the rain. The return from a Hawaii vacation was touring the western United States, voicing confidence in the future and promising government aid to the drought-stricken farm regions of the Midwest. Here, day on day of merciless, unrelieved heat had taken a bitter toll. In Missouri, Kansas City was shipping water from the mains into hard-hit rural areas, quantities trifling in comparison to normal needs, but to this parched land, life-giving fluid more precious than gold. Far too often this aid came hopelessly late to once rich farms, ravaged by dust and drought. The State of the Union message dwelled exclusively on home affairs, and millions listening throughout the nation were cheered by hopeful tidings for the future. FDR was the first president to make significant use of the new media of mass communications to speak directly to the nation. 25 years ago, the Depression still overshadowed America. In Pennsylvania's Saco Belt, destitute miners made homes in idle coke ovens. 20th century cave dwellers whose efforts to dress up their primitive shelters only emphasized the squalid tragedy their lives had become. But the economy was beginning an upward turn. High-speed presses were turning out a new series of baby bonds for sale in post offices, a convenient form of investment for the small wage earner, a source of needed capital for the administration. The first of the $25 bonds was bought by FDR from Postmaster General Farley. In Louisiana, Huey Long still reigned supreme, and for legions of his critics he had these words.
Confusion has destroyed and put many profitable enterprises further below the mark than they were to start with, and now they have a very poor...
25 years ago, the worst dust storms in our history turned day into night across enormous areas from the Midwest to the Rockies. Millions of acres of precious topsoil turned into a blizzard of dirt and grime, impoverishing countless small farms. The era of the Dust Bowl and the Okie was at hand. In Washington, President Roosevelt approved a proposed new constitution for the Philippine Islands, granting home rule and providing a guarantee of future independence. Among those at the ceremony, Governor General Frank Murphy, Secretary of State Howell, and two great names in Philippine history, Manuel Rosas and Manuel Quezon. 25 years ago, a Chiste battalion staged a chemical warfare field day outside Rome, complete with poison gas. A cocky, confident Mussolini proudly viewed the aggressive power that he was soon to hurl against Ethiopia. In Washington, thousands of farmers massed before the White House in support of FDR's New Deal Agricultural Adjustment Program at the beginning of its third year. The AAA was under fire from conservative critics, and even hotter domestic controversy was brewing, as Vice President Carter, acting as President of the Senate, signed the Patman bonus bill to go to the President for signature or for veto of the veterans measure. President Roosevelt made an unprecedented appearance before a joint session of Congress to defend his veto of the bonus bill, but despite his plea, overrode the veto with a 322-98 vote, spurred on by such foes of FDR as Louisiana's kingfish, Huey Long. And Father Coughlin, the radio priest, whose participation in politics and secular affairs was gathering strong momentum. 18,000 were in Madison Square Garden for this Coughlin rally. The foundations of the entire New Deal program were rocked, and the NRA Board of Strategy met hastily when the Supreme Court voided the National Recovery Act. In one of the most important high court decisions of the decade, the test case padlocking of a Brooklyn poultry firm for violations was held unconstitutional. The NRA's Blue Eagle was grounded by a sick chicken. As the administration worked top speed to salvage the recovery program, President William Greene of the AFL warned of possible chaos in industry. Decoration Day. The 17 then survivors of the Civil War took the review with Mayor LaGuardia. Spanish-American